Welcome to PrepAquatics.com. I am Skylar King. As always, you can email me, Skylar@PrepAquatics.com. You can follow me on Twitter @SkylarPrep. Here to preview the sectionals as much as we can. Really no information out there in terms of for sure what people are going to swim, but we think we got a bit of a preview at least of Deerfield's lineup at conference this past week. Quick recap of that. Stevenson, obviously lights out dominant at their conference meet at the North Suburban. Unfortunate news that got passed to me by a new Trier parent. I mean, the hope is that it was just hearsay, but I doubt that based on the assured nature that they said it with, which is very unfortunate, which is Annika Donovan, back injury, and is likely out, I'm guessing, for the season. She did not swim on Saturday. Depending on the severity, I guess she could potentially come back this week, but it seems very unlikely based on what I was told. Unfortunate way for her swim season to end, and all the best to her with her recovery. But Stevenson did some really crazy things. I'm assuming they were suited at this meet, especially, their 200 relays. They went 200 relays, better than 135, and it just shows you the type of lineup that they still have. A lot of firepower, and still definitely a favorite for a trophy. At the CSL South meet, New Trier obviously dominated, no surprise there. I actually thought, New Trier's taper group looked the best out of everyone there, I thought. And I mean, plenty of teams had good drops, but I mean, I think that the New Trier kids really performed well, and they definitely got some future contributors that tapered at this conference meet that'll probably be at the sectional level a year from now. Deerfield, to me, was really the story because of the way they likely indicated their lineup for this upcoming week. And it was when they were suited and not. And obviously, the big story there is Annika Parkey. She was in a suit for the medley relay, where she obviously swam the butterfly, and their front three were all in suits. And Isabel Wilhelm was not. Wilhelm was the only one that did not put a suit on Saturday because she was swimming only freestyle, which is what she's going to swim at state. All indications are Deerfield is going to bag their medley and go for free relays, because after Parkey swam the medley and the IM 159.0, by the way, a IHSA record other than the best IMer the state's ever seen, and definitely the best in-season IM we've ever had, because Leah Hayes didn't swim in season in high school. But to me, that indicates she's not swimming the IM, which means she's going to go back to the 200 free. She did, however, take the suit off for the 100 free. And I don't take that to mean she's going to swim the 100 free individually. I think she'll still swim the fly, but then she still didn't have the suit on for the 200 relay. And that leads me to believe that Deerfield is going for the free relays, which to me is very unusual. I know they lost their backstroker in the offseason, but with how they swam, and there's 2 extra spots, 46.0 was 8th place last year in prelims. They went 45.3 on Saturday. And so I think it's odd that they're bagging what looks like a surefire top 8 relay in the medley to roll the dice on 2 free relays, especially when one of their better swimmers, Erica Ilkew, who was on the 200 relay and the medley on Saturday, is a breaststroker by trade, unless she's not going to swim the breaststroke at the sectional. Now, she was suited all day, so maybe she's just going to swim relays and not the breaststroke, which again, she was 13th in last year, so it would be very unusual for her to not go that as her best individual race. So a lot of confusing things by Deerfield, and I can only surmise that this is probably the path they're going to take based on when Parkey specifically was suited and not. Wanted to kind of hit on the as many of the sectionals as kind of have interesting storylines coming into this weekend. And we'll start with Barrington. This is the meet Stevenson's at, as well as Deerfield. Stevenson should obviously run roughshod over this meet. Anything that Parkey is not swimming, Stevenson is probably going to dominate. And, I think they'll easily qualify. I mean, maybe not easily, but I think there's a very good chance that Stevenson qualifies a full boat of qualifiers. And it really is going to come down to, with their stockade of sprinters, who ends up where individually, relay-wise, because they have plenty of wealth to spread around. Certainly, if they want to try to win 3 relays, someone like Grossenbach is maybe only in one individual race. These are the type of things to look out for if you're at that sectional. Obviously, for those of you that are Stevenson supporters, probably don't know what the lineup is. But for those of you outsiders like me, that's what I'll be looking for when I start seeing these results about who's in what relay, who's in what individual race for Stevenson. At Ignatius, there's kind of 2 things to look out for. One, what did Ignatius do with their relays? I think there's definitely a path for them to potentially go for 3 relays and do something like pull Jillian McNamara out of the 500, go backstroke 3 relays. Colleen Tracy could potentially go IM 3 relays. Maya Arroyo historically has gone butterfly 3 relays. And so I think this is a legitimate path for St. Ignatius to go. And then for Whitney Young, right, Isabella Chow, is she going to be in the 100 or the fly? That's one of the biggest questions, I think, around the state for teams who have stars that could potentially go both. Whichever one she goes in, it's a big win for anyone in that opposite race. To me, it's a coin flip. If I was her, I would go the 100 free, because the 100 free is winnable. The fly is not winnable. So 50-100 would be my bet if I was gonna guess what Chow's gonna swim. But if she's in the fly, that wouldn't totally shock me. She's obviously excellent at both. But this meet for her in particular, and anyone that really doesn't have a team to go around them, is going to be about winning an individual state title. And the 100 free gives her a much better chance than the butterfly. She can obviously swim the butterfly at a meet after state. As we move on here, not a lot going on at Downers, East Moline, Champaign, Edwardsville. Downers, it's a weird thing with girls that doesn't seem to happen with the boys, where the sectional gets kind of split in half, and one of them usually ends up being pretty weak, and it's the one without Hinsdale and LT, and that's definitely the case here. So you could have a lot of wild card qualifiers out of this Downers North sectional. That you don't necessarily normally expect out of Chicago area sectionals. Same thing's pretty much true at Lincoln Way. I think, and obviously the downstate sectionals have really not been strong the last few years. In most cases, you're going to see probably just the event winner qualify in most of those meets, and even for that matter at like the Lincoln Way meet. Hinsdale Central. Again, Hinsdale and LT are both going to have really good meets. These are 2 coaches that are very experienced, not just at a sectional, but head-to-head at a sectional with Scott Walker and Bob Barber. And I think both of these schools, it's going to be interesting to see what their lineup is, but especially for LT. Hinsdale, if you told me to write out their lineup, I think I could come somewhat close. LT, I think, could take their lineup in a number of different ways because of all the depth that they have. And the amount of girls that have swum competent individual times in a number of races that would lead you to believe that they could score. As we move on here, again, Lake Forest is kind of in the same scenario as Downers, although I think the top end at the Lake Forest sectional, because of Libertyville and their couple stars, is going to be stronger than Downers. But there's definitely going to be some relatively easy qualifying events at that sectional. Ditto for Lockport, and this is one of the interesting things, and I've got some overall numbers to give. When you have all these sectionals that are could easily qualify sectional winners that don't go the cut. And for those that don't know, I mean, the cuts got slower this year, boys and girls, and it's because they're trying to buff up the number of qualifiers, especially now that we're at FMC for the long haul in the pool with more lanes, because things have gotten really thin, especially on the girls' side, in terms of the number of qualifiers. But quickly, Nequa, this is always one of the better sectionals. They've got Rosary, so they've got their top team. And then you've got a lot of teams, I would say, other than Rosary, everybody but Nequa. And then Oswego. Oswego's obviously got the 2 stars. Is probably going to be tapered down. Naperville Central, Naperville North. And so you should get a lot of fast swims here. This is the section I'm going to be at because it's closest to home for me, and that lets me get home and start doing some calculations on all these other sectionals that have taken place. But Nequa, I've talked about in recent weeks. I think they're a state meet relay team. Oswego, obviously, with Diner and Gressick, are going to be ready to go at state in a week and a half. But everyone else is kind of unproven and is really probably going to have to go all the way down to qualify. And here, obviously, the big question still is, what does Rosary do with Rents? Once that decision's made, I think the rest of their lineup kind of falls into place as to who swims what. It's either Nakula and O'Connor both swimming the butterfly, or probably O'Connor going backstroke and medley only with Nakula in the fly based on lifetime bests. Although it wouldn't shock anybody if the nod went to the senior. Glenbrook North. This is, obviously going to be a fast sectional. New Trier is going to light the place up. And it's going to be similar, I think, to Nequa in the dynamic, where New Trier is that alpha dog team, and then there's going to be a lot of teams tapering to make sure they get in. Loyola, obviously with Maria Chang, she's going to be having her eyes on the state meet, and should qualify without having to come down all the way. But a lot of these schools trying to get relays in, and otherwise we'll be down all the way. Fenwick sectional, again, not a ton there. This sectional was really hurt with star power when we found out Sadie Murphy isn't out for the team anymore. And Fenwick should really dominate here. Even in some cases, probably where they don't go the state cut, they'll probably get in. Rockford, again, not going to be a ton there. You're going to have a few star type performances, and then a lot of events where someone qualifies without going the cut. And then St. Charles North, where East and North and West Chicago, this might be like the 3 most competent teams that we have at one sectional. A lot of teams have a lot of sectionals have a top 2. There's really not any great top 3s, and none of these teams are really trophy contenders. But certainly St. Charles North and West Chicago are potential top 10 teams, and St. Charles East I think could surprise some people. I could see them scoring multiple relays in the bottom and getting a couple individuals in as well. And so it should be fun to see how those matchups all play out. So now quickly to the numbers that I mentioned. Last year was one of the all-time lows in terms of number of qualifiers. The relays, 26 medleys, 25 200 relays, 24 400 relays. Again, we're in a 9-lane pool. So if we were using all 9 lanes, we couldn't even fill 3 full heats of any of these relays. And then individually, the 200, the IM, the fly, the 500, all not even 30 qualifiers. And, it seems like it's been a number of years, but it's very possible that we just haven't fully recovered from what we lost during the pandemic, because a lot of these kids probably didn't get any pool time or very little because of everything that went on during some of those chief developmental years, and that's really thinned the herd in terms of who can qualify. To go back to 19, the last state meet before, 34 medleys, 29 200 relays, and 33 400 relays. And again, that was back when we were in 6-lane pools every other year at Evanston. And in 2019, the low number of qualifiers in an individual race was 33. And half the races or a little more had over 40 qualifiers. And so you can see just in kind of a 4-year stretch how things have been impacted. And so hopefully now that they've decided to make the cut slower, because we know we're staying at FMC and we'll have more lanes, warm down pool, it's not as big a deal about the number of kids that are at the meet because of all the extra pool space. We start to see more qualifiers as the years go on, because quite frankly, as I said at the beginning of the season, there was so few returning qualifiers rather, that basically everyone that was back was coming back top 16. And so we're going to see a lot of girls that didn't even qualify last year score, about as many as ever, if you ask me. And I think that's one of the numbers to watch at the state meet. But hopefully everyone has a great taper that is tapering this weekend. Hopefully everyone that tapered these last 2 weekends at conference is happy about their season. And we're 9 days away from state prelims as this gets recorded. And again, I think we've got a really fun battle for some trophies and for some top 10s, and just an overall experience of how top 16 is going to impact this meet. Both in terms of how many different kids can get a medal individually, and what schools maybe are top 10 or trophy contenders that wouldn't have been if there wouldn't have been those extra spots. How many potential 7th, 8th, or 13th through 16th qualifiers are going to make a big move up on Saturday that wouldn't have got that opportunity last year? Can someone that qualified 7th or 8th win a state title when they wouldn't have even been eligible for a state title on Saturday last year? So these are the interesting dynamics that we're going to have at play for the very first time, and it's going to take some getting used to. But in a few years, this is going to be the new normal for everybody, and a lot of the kids are not going to remember life before top 16. As always, you can email me, SkylerPrepAquatics.com. You can follow me on Twitter, @SkylerPrep. Again, good luck to everyone this weekend, and we'll see you next week talking state meet predictions here at PrepAquatics.com.